Sergeant Marcus Cole never expected the matter. He was just another human soldier, one of 12 assigned to stand guard at an alien peace summit on a world that made Earth look like a child's drawing. The Volanti homeworld was old. Everything here was old. The trees had been growing for 10,000 years. The buildings had stood for longer than humans had possessed fire. And the Volanti themselves lived for thousands of years. Watching younger species come and go like seasons to them, humans were nothing special. They called humans mayflies when they thought no one was listening. Creatures that lived for a single day and then vanished. Humans had only left their solar system 50 years ago. The Volanti had been sailing between stars when humans were still figuring out bronze. Marcus understood his role. He was decoration, a political gesture. The Volanti allowed human soldiers at the summit because it cost them nothing and it made the young human government feel important. He stood at his post in his formal uniform, watching beings that would still be alive long after his great-grandchildren turned to dust. Princess Elendra Val Sorrenthi walked past him every day. She was the third daughter of the Eternal King, and she was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. Tall and graceful, with silver hair that fell to her waist and eyes that glowed like pale moons. She had lived for 2,000 years. She would live for thousands more. And she had never once looked at Marcus Cole. He was furniture to her. Less than furniture. At least furniture served a purpose. The peace summit dragged on for weeks. Diplomats talked in circles. Trade agreements were debated word by word. Marcus stood at his post, watched the clock, and dreamed of going home to Earth. He missed rain. He missed food that tasted like food. He missed being around people who would die someday, just like him. On the 32nd day of the summit, everything changed. The Grand Hall was packed with delegates from a dozen species. The Eternal King himself had come to give a speech about cooperation between worlds. Princess Elendra stood near the front, dressed in flowing robes that cost more than Marcus would earn in his entire life. Marcus noticed the shimmer first. It was small, just a flicker in the air near one of the pillars. His training kicked in before his mind caught up. Something was wrong. Someone was using camouflage technology. Someone was hiding in a room full of royalty. He saw the assassin appear 3 steps from the princess. He saw the blade, thin and sharp, and designed to cut through Volanti shields like paper. He saw Elendra turn, too slow, her ancient eyes widening as death came for her. Marcus did not think. Humans never did, in moments like this. Thinking took too long. Instead, he moved. He crossed 15 feet in less than 2 seconds, throwing himself between the princess and the blade. The weapon meant for her heart went through his shoulder instead, punching through armor and flesh and bone. The assassin twisted the blade, and Marcus felt it scrape against his ribs before sliding deeper into his chest. Pain exploded through him like fire. He grabbed the assassin's arm and held on, even as his vision went dark at the edges. Volanti guards finally reacted, pulling the attacker away, but Marcus barely noticed. He was falling. The marble floor was cold against his face. His blood looked very red against the white stone. Someone was screaming. Many people were screaming. Marcus tried to breathe and found that breathing had become very difficult. His lung was filling with blood. He was going to die on an alien world, far from home, far from anyone who would remember him. A face appeared above him. Silver hair. Glowing eyes. The princess was kneeling in his blood, her hands pressing against his wound, her voice shouting commands in a language he did not understand. Strange, he thought. She finally looked at him. Then the darkness took him. Marcus woke 3 days later in a medical bay that smelled like flowers and electricity. His chest was wrapped in bandages that glowed faintly. Machines he did not recognize beeped softly around him. And Princess Elendra Val Sorrenthi was sitting beside his bed, watching him with an expression he could not read. He tried to speak, coughed, and tried again. "What happened?" "You almost died," she said. Her voice was like music, but there was something heavy in it. "Our physician saved you." "It was difficult. Human bodies are fragile and strange to us." "The assassin?" "Captured. He will face justice." She paused. "You saved my life, human. You threw yourself before a blade meant for my heart." "Why?" Marcus thought about the question. He did not have a good answer. "It's my job," he said finally. "I'm security." "You were decoration," she corrected. "We both know this. You had no duty to protect me. No obligation. Your death would have meant nothing to your mission or your people. And yet, you move faster than any of my guards. You gave your life for mine without hesitation." "I didn't die," Marcus pointed out. "You should have." She looked away. "The blade was poisoned, designed to kill Volanthi in seconds. The only reason you survived long enough for treatment was that the poison did not recognize your biology. Your body is so different from ours that death itself was confused." Marcus laughed, then regretted it as pain shot through his chest. "Lucky me." Alindra did not laugh. Instead, she spoke words in a language that sounded older than the stones around them. Her voice was formal and heavy with meaning. When she finished, the medical machines flickered, and somewhere in the distance, Marcus heard gasps of shock. "What did you just say?" he asked. "I have invoked the Keltherin," she said quietly. "The life-debt of my people. It is our oldest law, written before we first touched the stars. When someone gives their life for another, even if they survive, the saved one is bound to the Savior. The debt must be repaid." Marcus stared at her. "I'm going to recover. You don't owe me anything." "That is not how the Keltherin works." Her glowing eyes met his. "I am now bound to you, Marcus Cole, by the sacred traditions of my people. I owe you a debt that can only be repaid through equivalent sacrifice or through service to you for the rest of your life." "The rest of my life?" "I'm human. That's like 60 years, maybe." "Yes." Her voice was soft. "I know." The weight of what she had done began to sink in. This ancient princess, this being who would live for thousands of years, had just bound herself to a mayfly. A flicker. A single breath in the long history of her people. "Can't you take it back?" Marcus asked. The sadness in her eyes answered before her words did. "No. The Keltherin, once spoken, cannot be unspoken. I have bound my fate to yours, human. For better or worse, until your debt is paid." Marcus closed his eyes and wished he had just stayed at his post. "Well," he said finally, "this is going to be awkward." The news of the Keltherin spread through the Volanthi court like fire through dry grass. Within hours, everyone knew. The third princess had bound herself to a human, a mayfly, a creature that would be dead. Before she noticed he had aged, Marcus learned very quickly that he had become the most talked about human in the galaxy. Volanthi nobles came to stare at him through the medical bay windows. Some looked curious. Most looked disgusted. He heard them whispering in their musical language, and though he did not understand the words, he understood the tone. They thought he was a disease, a mistake, a stain on their ancient traditions. On the fourth day, soldiers came to escort him to the throne room of the Eternal King. Marcus had seen pictures of the throne room, but pictures could not capture the truth of it. The chamber was so vast that clouds formed near the ceiling. Pillars thicker than redwood trees held up a roof painted with the history of the Volanthi people. Millions of years of triumph and tragedy, rendered in colors that had no names in human languages. The walk from the entrance to the throne took nearly 10 minutes. The Eternal King sat on a throne carved from a single crystal, and he looked exactly like what he was, a being who had ruled for 9,000 years. His face was beautiful and terrible. His face was beautiful and terrible. His eyes held the weight of centuries. When he spoke, his voice filled the room without effort. "Marcus Cole of Earth," the king said. "Approach." Marcus approached. His wounds still ached. His legs shook. But he walked with his back straight, because he was a soldier, and soldiers did not show weakness. "You have created a problem," the king continued. "My daughter has invoked the Keltherin for you. This has not happened in 12,000 years. The last time a princess bound herself to a commoner, it sparked a civil war that lasted 3 centuries. Your Majesty," Marcus said, "I didn't ask for this. I just did my job. Your job was to stand and look decorative. Saving my daughter's life was not in your orders." The king leaned forward. "Tell me, human, what do you want?" Marcus thought about the question. He thought about wealth, about power, about all the things a man might ask for from a king who ruled 1,000 worlds. Then he thought about the princess, sitting by his bed with sadness in her eyes. "I want to release her," he said. "Whatever words I need to say, whatever ceremony I need to do, I'll do it. She shouldn't be bound to someone like me." The throne room went silent. Marcus could feel thousands of eyes on him, could hear the shocked intake of breath from nobles, who had expected him to demand riches. The eternal king's expression changed. For a moment, something like surprise crossed his ancient face. Then something like sorrow. "You do not understand," the king said. "The Keltherin cannot be released by the one who holds the debt. Only the one who owes can repay it. My daughter must fulfill her obligation, or she must live with its weight forever. Then I'll tell everyone she repaid it. Problem solved. A lie would satisfy no one. The Keltherin is not about words. It is about truth. The debt exists in her soul now, human. It will burn inside her until it is fulfilled." The king stood, and Marcus felt the weight of 9,000 years pressing down on him. "If she does not repay you, she will be considered without honor. She will lose her status, her title, her place in our society. She will be nothing." "That's insane," Marcus said. "I don't want any of that. I just want to go home. What you want does not matter. What I want does not matter. The Keltherin is older than both of us. It is the foundation of our civilization. We cannot simply ignore it because it is inconvenient." Marcus felt frustration building in his chest. "Ben, what am I supposed to do?" The king looked at him for a long moment. "I do not know," he admitted. "No Velanti has ever been bound to a human before. No princess has ever owed a life debt to someone who will be dead in an eye blink of our time. This is without precedent, without solution." A door opened at the side of the throne room, and Princess Elendra entered. She walked with her head high, ignoring the stares and whispers of the court. She came to stand beside Marcus, facing her father. "I have made my choice," she said. "I spoke the words. I accept the consequences." "Daughter," the king said softly, "you have bound yourself to a dying flame. His life is nothing to us. By the time you have finished your morning meditation, he will be bones and dust. Then I will spend his brief time understanding why he burns so brightly." Elendra turned to look at Marcus. "I have a question for you, human. A question that has kept me awake for 3 nights. Ask it. Why did you do it? You did not know me. You had no reason to protect me. You knew that throwing yourself before that blade would likely kill you. You had one life, one precious brief existence, and you were willing to end it for a stranger who had never spoken to you. Why?" Marcus thought about the question. He thought about his training, about duty, about honor. But none of those words felt right. The truth was simpler and stranger. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I saw you in danger and I moved. I didn't think about it. I didn't weigh the costs. I just knew that I could help, so I did. But you would have died. Yeah, probably. And that did not stop you? Marcus shrugged, then winced as his wounds protested. Everyone dies. Might as well die for something. Alindra stared at him as if he had spoken in a language she had never heard. The king stared at him the same way. The whole court stared at him. These ancient beings who had lived for thousands of years and planned to live for thousands more. You are insane, Alindra said finally. Your entire species is insane. Maybe, Marcus admitted. But we're also still here. 50 years ago, we hadn't even left our own solar system. Now we're standing in the throne room of an empire that's older than our oldest civilizations. We must be doing something right. The king sat back on his throne. His expression had changed again, and Marcus could not read what he was thinking. Perhaps, the eternal king said slowly, there is more to humans than we have understood. Perhaps there is a reason the Keltherin was invoked for one of your kind. Or perhaps it was just bad luck, Marcus said. Despite everything, the king smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible, but it was real. Go, he said. Both of you. I must think on this. The court will need time to adjust. And you, Marcus Cole, will need time to heal. The Keltherin demands that my daughter remain near you until the debt is paid. I suggest you learn to tolerate each other. Marcus looked at Alindra. She looked at him. This is going to be a long 60 years, he said. For you, perhaps, she replied. For me, it will be over in a heartbeat. They walked out of the throne room together, the Mayfly and the princess, bound by an ancient law that neither of them wanted and neither of them could escape. Behind them, the court buzzed with speculation and scandal. The universe, Marcus decided, had a very strange sense of humor. Weeks passed. Marcus healed slowly, his human body knitting itself back together in ways that fascinated the Volanti physicians. They had never studied a human so closely before. They found his biology both primitive and remarkable. His cells repaired themselves with desperate urgency, as if his body knew it had no time to waste. Princess Alindra visited him every day. At first, their conversations were awkward and short. She would ask questions about human culture, and he would try to answer. She would tell him about Volanti history, and he would try to stay awake. They were two creatures from different worlds, different timescales, different ways of thinking. But slowly, something changed. It started when Alindra discovered human war stories. She had accessed the human historical database, looking for information about Marcus's species. And she had found something that confused her deeply. You have wars, she said one evening, sitting in his medical room with a holographic display floating between them. That lasts longer than the soldiers who fight them. This war here, the one you call World War I, it lasted 4 years. Many of the humans who started it did not live to see the end. And yet others continued fighting. Why? Marcus looked at the display. Images of trenches and mud, and young men dying in their thousands. Because the cause mattered more than any individual life. But if you die, you experience nothing. You feel no victory. You gain no reward. You simply cease to exist. True, but the people who come after us get to live in a better world. That's the reward. Alindra was quiet for a long moment. Volanthi do not think this way. When we fight to survive. We fight for ourselves, for our families, for things we will personally benefit from. We do not throw away our lives for abstract concepts. That's because you have time, Marcus said. You can wait. You can plan. You can let problems solve themselves over centuries. We don't have that luxury. If we want something to change, we have to change it ourselves, even if we won't be around to see the results. The princess processed this. Marcus could see her struggling with the concept, trying to fit it into her understanding of the universe. It was like trying to explain color to someone who had only ever seen in black and white. Over the following weeks, Alindra began to watch the human soldiers more closely. There were still 12 of them on the Volanti homeworld, and they continued their duties as if the whole scandal with Marcus had never happened. They trained together. They laughed together. They told jokes that made no sense to Volanti ears. "They are so close," Alindra observed one day, watching two human soldiers sparring in a courtyard. "They fight like brothers. Yet they have only known each other for 2 years. 2 years is a long time for us," Marcus said. He was well enough to walk now, though he still tired easily. "We form bonds quickly because we have to. We don't have centuries to slowly become friends. Is that why you saved me? Because humans form attachments quickly." Marcus shook his head. "I didn't have any attachment to you. I didn't even know you. I just saw someone in danger and reacted. But that makes no sense. Welcome to humanity." A month later, the assassin's network struck again. Marcus was walking with Alindra through the palace gardens when the attack came. 3 figures appeared from nowhere, cloaked in the same camouflage technology as before. They moved with killing intent, blades drawn, heading straight for the princess. Marcus did not think. He pushed Alindra behind him and drew his sidearm. The weapon was meant for human threats, barely powerful enough to scratch Volanti armor, but it was all he had. He fired 3 times. 2 shots went wide. The third caught one attacker in the shoulder, slowing him down. The other 2 reached Marcus. He fought with fists and fury, blocking a blade with his forearm and feeling it slice through flesh. Blood sprayed. Pain screamed. He kept fighting. He grabbed one attacker's arm and twisted, breaking the joint. He headbutted another, feeling the crack of his own skull against alien bone. Volanti guards finally arrived, flooding the garden with overwhelming force. The attackers were subdued in seconds. But Marcus was already on the ground, bleeding from 3 new wounds, his vision fading. "Idiot," Alindra said, kneeling beside him. "Stupid, reckless, impossible idiot. Did I get them?" Marcus asked. "You delayed them long enough for the guards to arrive. You also nearly got yourself killed. Again. That's... yes then." The physicians patched him. Up. Again. Alindra sat by his bed. Again. And... The Volanthi court whispered about the human who seemed determined to die for their princess. Again. "You cannot keep doing this," Alindra said when he woke. "Your body cannot sustain this damage. Humans are not built for repeated trauma." "Neither are Volanthi," Marcus pointed out. "That blade was meant for you. I would have survived. We are more durable than you. Maybe. Maybe not. I wasn't going to take that chance." Alindra looked at him with an expression he had never seen before. It was frustration and confusion and something else, something softer. "I have lived for 2,000 years," she said. "I have seen stars born and die. I have watched civilizations rise and fall. I thought I understood the universe. But I do not understand you, Marcus Cole. I do not understand how a creature who has everything to lose can throw it away so easily." "We don't see it as throwing things away," Marcus said. "We see it as spending them wisely." "On what?" "On a princess who ignored you. On a people who call you a mayfly?" Marcus smiled. It hurt, but he smiled anyway. "On a future I won't live to see. On a galaxy that will keep spinning after I'm gone. On the chance that maybe, someday, humans and Volanthi will actually understand each other." Alindra was silent for a long time. "You are not mayflies," she said finally. "I was wrong about that. Mayflies simply exist and then cease. They leave nothing behind. But humans burn. You burn so brightly that even we, with all our thousands of years, cannot look away. Is that good or bad?" "I do not know yet." She reached out and took his hand. Her skin was cool and smooth against his. But I think I want to find out. In the medical bay, surrounded by alien technology and watched by suspicious nobles, a human soldier and an alien princess held hands and began, slowly, to understand each other. The universe had a strange sense of humor. But sometimes, strange things led to beautiful places. The isolationist faction was growing bolder. Intelligence reports revealed the truth that the royal court had tried to ignore. The assassination attempts were not random. They were part of a coordinated movement among conservative Volanti, who believed that contact with younger species was corrupting their ancient civilization. They called themselves the Pure Way, and they wanted Alindra dead because she had become a symbol of everything they hated. A princess bound to a human. A royal bloodline tainted by association with mayflies. In their eyes, she was already corrupted beyond salvation. Killing her would send a message to the entire galaxy. The Volanti would not mix with lesser beings. Marcus learned all of this from Alindra, who had stopped hiding information from him. In the months since the Keltherin, something had shifted between them. They were not quite friends. They were not quite anything. But they trusted each other in ways that neither had expected. "They will come for me again," Alindra said. They were sitting in her private chambers, a space filled with art that was older than human civilization. "My father's spies say the Pure Way is planning something large. A final strike. Then we need to get you somewhere safe." "There is nowhere safe. They have supporters in every level of society. They have weapons that our guards cannot counter. They have waited thousands of years for this moment." Marcus thought about this. "What about the human compound? Our soldiers are there. Our technology is different. Maybe they won't expect it." Alindra shook her head. 12 humans against an army? You would all die. Maybe. But we'd take some of them with us. You say that so casually, as if your lives mean nothing. "Our lives mean everything," Marcus said. "That's why we're willing to spend them on things that matter." The attack came 3 days later, in the dark hours before dawn. Marcus woke to the sound of explosions. The palace was under assault. Through his window, he could see fires burning and shapes moving in the darkness. The Pure Way had committed everything to this moment. Hundreds of warriors, armed with ancient weapons and burning with righteous fury. He grabbed his rifle and ran toward Alindra's chambers. The palace was chaos. Volanti guards fought in the corridors, their graceful movements desperate against overwhelming numbers. Servants fled in terror. Noble families barricaded themselves in safe rooms that would not be safe for long. Marcus found the other human soldiers gathering at a junction near Alindra's wing. Sergeant Chun was already there, along with Corporal Williams and the rest of the squad. They looked scared. They also looked ready. "What's the plan?" Chun asked. "We hold the corridor to the princess's chambers," Marcus said. "Whatever it takes, whatever it costs, we do not let them through. There's at least 50 of them coming this way. Then we better make every shot count." The humans took positions. They set up what barricades they could find. They checked their weapons and said their prayers and looked at each other with the strange calm that comes before certain death. The Pure Way came like a wave. Marcus fired until his rifle overheated. He switched to his sidearm. When that ran dry, he fought with his knife. Around him, his fellow humans did the same. They were outgunned, outmatched, and outnumbered 5-1. They did not retreat. They did not surrender. They held the line with blood and fury and in stubborn refusal to die. Chun fell first, a blade through his chest. He kept fighting for another 30 seconds before his body finally gave out. Williams lost an arm and kept firing with the other. Rodriguez held a choke point alone for 2 full minutes, screaming defiance until a shot silenced him forever. One by one, the humans fell. And one by one, they took enemies with them. Marcus was the last one standing. He had taken wounds he could not count. His blood painted the walls. His body screamed for rest. But behind him was the door to Alindra's chambers, and beyond that door was the woman who had become something he could not name. The remaining Pure Way warriors gathered before him. Perhaps 30 of them, wounded and weary, but still standing. Their leader stepped forward, a tall Volante with cold eyes and a blade that dripped with human blood. "Stand aside, Mayfly," the leader said. "You have fought well, better than we expected, but you cannot win. Your friends are dead. You are dying. Let us finish our holy work." Marcus raised his knife. It was the only weapon he had left. His hands were shaking. His vision was blurring. He could feel death waiting patiently at his shoulder. "You know what's funny about mayflies?" he said. "We don't know how to give up." He charged. The fight lasted 11 minutes. Later, the survivors would say it should have lasted 11 seconds. A dying human with a knife against 30 armored Volante warriors. It was not a battle. It was a statement. Marcus cut and stabbed and bit and clawed. He took hits that should have killed him and kept moving. He fell and rose. He bled and fought. He screamed with a voice that had no right to still be working. When the royal reinforcements finally broke through, they found Marcus on his knees in a corridor filled with bodies. His enemies lay around him, more than a dozen, brought down by a single human who refused to stop. He was still trying to stand when Alindra reached him. "Marcus." Her voice broke on his name. "Marcus, stop. It's over. They're gone." He looked up at her. His eyes were dim. His body was failing. "Did I hold them?" "You held them. You impossible, stubborn, beautiful fool. You held them. Good." He smiled, and there was blood on his teeth. "That's good." Then he collapsed, and the world went dark, and Alindra's scream echoed through the burning palace, like the cry of a star going out. The physician said he would not survive. His human body had taken too much damage. There was nothing more they could do. The mayfly had finally burned too bright, and now his light was fading. Alindra sat by his bed and held his hand and listened to his heartbeat grow weaker. And she made a decision that would change the course of 2 civilizations. There was a law older than the Keltherin, the Viosoloth, the binding of souls. It allowed a Volante to share their life force with another, to extend their own centuries to someone deemed worthy. It had not been used in 40,000 years. It was forbidden for royalty. It was unthinkable between species. Alindra did not care. "I claim the Von Soloth," she said, her voice ringing through the medical bay. "I claim this human as worthy. I claim his soul as bound to mine." The physician stared in horror. Attendants fled to alert the king. Ancient alarms began to sound, marking the invocation of a power that had been dormant since before human language existed. Alindra placed her hands on Marcus's chest and began to share her endless years with the dying mayfly who had given everything for her. Light filled the room. The universe held its breath, and Marcus Cole's heart began to beat stronger. Marcus woke to a world that felt different. The pain was gone. Not dulled or managed, but truly gone. His body felt strong in ways it had never felt before. His senses were sharper. His thoughts were clearer. He could hear his own heartbeat, steady and powerful. And something in its rhythm had changed. Alindra was sitting beside his bed. She looked exhausted. Her silver hair dimmed and her glowing eyes faded. But she was smiling. "How do you feel?" she asked. Marcus sat up. The movement should have torn his wounds open. Instead, he felt only smooth skin where there had been damage. "What did you do to me?" "I gave you time." She reached out and touched his face. "The vile Soloth. It shares life force between souls. You will not age as humans age now. You will not die as humans die. Your lifespan is bound to mine. Marcus stared at her. You mean I'm going to live for thousands of years? If the binding holds, yes. Perhaps longer. Why? Why would you give up your years for me? Alindra laughed, and there was something new in the sound. Something warm. You gave your life for me 3 times. You fought alone against an army so that I might live. You never asked for anything in return. You never even expected to survive. She took his hand. The Keltheran demanded that I repay my debt. But I did not invoke the Val Solith because of the Keltheran. I did it because I could not imagine eternity without you in it. Marcus did not know what to say. So he did what humans did when words failed them. He pulled her close and held her, and she held him back. And for a long moment, nothing else existed. The political consequences were enormous. The Eternal King summoned them both to the throne room. The court was packed with nobles, diplomats, and representatives from a dozen species. News of what had happened had spread across the galaxy. The Pure Way had been broken, their assault defeated, their leaders captured or killed. And a human soldier had been bound to a Volanthi princess in a way that had not happened in 40,000 years. You have caused quite a disruption, the king said to Marcus. His voice was unreadable. I seem to do that a lot, Marcus admitted. Indeed. The king looked at his daughter. The Vosolith was forbidden to royalty. You have broken laws older than your own life. I have, Alindra said. She stood tall, unashamed. And I would do it again. Because of love? Because of worth. She stepped forward. Father, I have lived for 2,000 years. I have seen much. But I have never seen anything like the humans. They live for a single breath of our time, and yet they burn brighter than any of us. They fight for causes they will not live to see finished. They love with a desperation we cannot understand. They throw themselves into death for strangers, without hesitation, without regret. She gestured to Marcus. This man saved my life 3 times. He held a corridor alone against 30 warriors. He did not do this because of duty or law or tradition. He did it because that is who he is. That is who humans are. And I have decided that if the Volanthi have forgotten how to burn like that, then we need to learn again. The throne room was silent. Then, slowly, the Eternal King began to laugh. It was not a cruel laugh. It was the laugh of a man who had just understood something that had been hiding from him for 9,000 years. I have watched your species, Marcus Cole, the king said. I have watched humans spread across the stars with a speed that terrifies us. We thought you were simply aggressive, reckless, foolish. We thought your brief lives made you careless. He stood from his throne and walked down to face Marcus directly. The weight of millennia pressed down, but Marcus stood his ground. We were wrong, the king continued. Your brief lives do not make you careless. They make you urgent. You do not wait because you cannot afford to wait. You do not hesitate because hesitation costs you everything. You love fiercely because you have so little time to love. You fight desperately because every moment might be your last. He reached out and placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. My daughter has not lowered herself by binding to you. She has risen. She has found something that our ancient civilization had lost. She has found fire. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. The Pure Way's defeat had shattered the isolationist movement. Their supporters, seeing their army broken by a handful of humans, began to question their beliefs. If mayflies could fight like that, maybe they were not so inferior after all. New treaties were drafted. Humanity was elevated from a young curiosity to an honored ally. Human and Volanthi soldiers began training together. The long-lived learned urgency from the brief. The brief learned patience from the eternal. And both civilizations began to change in ways that neither could have predicted. Marcus found himself at the center of it all. The human who had become something more. The mayfly who would not die. He walked through the Volanthi court with Alindra at his side, and where once he had been ignored, now he was watched with respect and wonder. "You know," he said one evening, as they stood on a balcony overlooking the ancient gardens, "I still don't think you owe me anything." Alindra smiled. The light had returned to her eyes. The Valsalith had taken something from her, but she seemed more alive than ever before. "The Keltherin is fulfilled," she said. "I gave you centuries. The debt is paid. Then why are you still here?" She moved closer to him, her body warm against his. "Because I choose to be. Because you have ruined me for my own kind. No Volanthi will ever match the way you throw yourself at life. No ancient noble will ever burn the way you burn." "I'm just a soldier," Marcus said. "Nothing special. You are wrong." She turned to face him. "You are the most special thing I have ever found in 2,000 years. You showed me that a single moment lived fully is worth more than 1,000 years spent merely existing. You showed me that courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. You showed me what it means to be human. And what does it mean? It means to know that you will end, and to keep going anyway. It means to love knowing you will lose. It means to fight even when victory is impossible." She kissed him softly. "It means to burn bright enough that even the eternal cannot look away." Marcus held her and thought about the strange path that had brought him here. A nobody soldier from Earth, a decoration at a peace summit. A man who had thrown himself in front of a blade without thinking. He had not asked for any of this. He had not planned for any of this. He had simply done what humans did. He had seen someone in danger, and he had moved. And now he stood on an alien world, bound to a princess who would live forever, changed in ways he was only beginning to understand. He had centuries ahead of him now, millennia, time enough to watch stars born and die, time enough to see humanity spread across the galaxy, time enough to love and fight and burn. "So," he said, looking out at the alien sky, "what do we do with forever?" Alindra smiled and took his hand. "Whatever we want. And we start right now." The mayfly who became eternal and the princess who learned to burn walked together into the future, hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next. Behind them, two civilizations began to change. Ahead of them, the universe waited with infinite possibilities. And somewhere in the space between stars, the fire that Marcus Cole had started continued to spread, lighting the darkness one moment at a time. Some flames, it turned out, were too stubborn to die, and some loves were worth giving up eternity for.